one of the things that you wrote, another thing you said was, we do not need to think more about sex. We need to think more of sex. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, so this is in the culture on cheap sex. And this is just the idea that, the sexual revolution, amongst other things, convinced us that our highest good is to have the most sexual encounters that we can, that our best self-expression, the best freedom, the best, joy and happiness that we're going to experience is if we can have as many sexual encounters as possible. So it's not that we need to think more about sex. Sex is everywhere. You can hardly hear or watch a commercial or a song or a movie or drive down the highway without a billboard that is proclaiming the goodness of sex. So it's not that we need to think more about it, because we think about it all the time, but we do need to think more of it. We need to value it more. We need to prize it more. We need to understand what sex was created for, and in what context it is best enjoyed, and in what context it serves us as humans the most, the best. So a holistic approach really to sex. Think more of it, not necessarily more about it.
And I thought that was a very good thing, because you're right, it is everywhere, but we need to have a whole, I don't want to say a holier view. I mean, maybe that is the right term, a more distinct view, a more holistic view. It's interesting. Another thing you wrote, and again, I don't think I've ever quoted someone so much just going through one of these conversations before, but there were just so many tidbits that I wanted to draw out. Where you said, how might history be different if instead in that moment we stood before our maker and proclaimed the female body to be very good? What if instead of preventing pregnancy, we protected it? What if we swapped our inconvenience for awe? How do we do that?
I love to talk about this. And whenever I talk about it with women, it usually blows their minds. Not because it's necessarily an original thought with me. It's not. I've obviously learned from so many women before me. But this is something that I don't think my generation, and even a generation or two ahead of me and behind me, has given any thought to. We think birth control, abortion, preventing pregnancy is so normal. We even think some of these things are human rights, or should be the rights of all people, not necessarily abortion, but we just have so normalized preventing pregnancy. Now, I am not necessarily communicating a perspective that says women should have as many children as possible. That's not necessarily my point of view. But what I am saying is, what if we were to rewind a few decades, or, 50, 60, 70, 80 years? And instead of looking for ways to ensure that women don't get pregnant, or if they got pregnant, they could do away with the baby, what if instead, as a society, we had said, babies are going to happen. How can we create workspaces and jobs and rhythms in our community where those babies are embraced and cherished? What if we made room for all the babies instead of pressuring women to do away with them? How different would it be? In other words, what if we really looked at, and I'm not necessarily advocating for these things, but things like universal health care, or things like, several years off when you're having babies. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to get creative, bring in some political scientists, but what if we thought outside the box and said, yeah, let's be a people who makes room for life, rather than a people driven with the obsession of preventing and doing away with life. I get excited and also sad when I think about what could have been. And maybe the tide is turning, with the overturn of Roe and the pro-life community wanting to get more creative, and, those across even religious lines and political lines coming together to think about these things. Maybe we will become a people who does a better job of making space for babies, rather than the pursuit of ending pregnancies.